Wake up, babe. New Syrian government just dropped. After 50 years of tyrannical rule, the Syrian rebel forces have overthrown the dictator Bashar al-Assad, forcing him to flee to Russia, making al-Assad in effect a Syrian refugee. The jokes just write themselves. But what a lot of people don't know is that the al-Assad family belonged to a secretive Islamic sect known as the Alawites. Syria is a land of incredible religious diversity. You have the Sunni, the Shia, the Druze, you have Christians of all denominations. But who are the Alawites? Why does the rest of the Islamic world see them as heretics? And how did they become the most powerful minority in Syria? This is the Panda Tower channel, and welcome to the world of Islam. I released a poll for my viewers a few months ago asking how much you know about Islam, and more than half of you answered jack shit. First of all, thank you for your honesty, and second, don't worry my friend, because I will teach you the very basics. The Alawite religion branched off from Shia Islam a long time ago. You probably heard of Sunni and Shia Muslims, but what is the difference between these two? Well, let me tell you. You see, after the death of Prophet Muhammad, there was a bit of disagreement on who should be his successor. Some people considered Ali, younger cousin of Muhammad, to be the most logical choice. After all, Ali was a direct blood relative of Muhammad, and he had been with the Prophet during his last moments. But while Ali was busy getting the Prophet ready for burial, some other followers of Muhammad got together and elected someone else, Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr had been one of Muhammad's closest friends, one of the first people to believe in him, and he was known for his kindness to the early Muslim community. So Abu Bakr was elected as Muhammad's successor, the first of the rightfully guided leaders, known as caliphs. Abu Bakr died 2 years later, followed by Caliph Umar and Uthman, who were both brutally assassinated by dissenting Muslims. After the death of Uthman, Ali finally got his time to shine, becoming the fourth caliph. But his rule was not without controversy, and he was also assassinated shortly after. This is how history went down, and this is the history that Sunni Muslims embrace. Shia Muslims, however, believe all of this was a farce. Shias believe Muhammad actually appointed Ali as his successor, but Ali was unrightfully kept from his position. Ali should have been the first caliph, not Abu Bakr. Shias consider the first 3 caliphs to be phonies, frauds, and so the Muslim world would eventually split between the issue of succession. But this is not the only difference between Sunni and Shia Islam, because both branches will develop important theological differences as well. Sunnis interpret the Quran with the help of scholars, but Shias would build their theological understanding around the image of the Imam. The Imam was viewed as the ultimate religious authority on earth, the only person capable of correctly interpreting the Quran, and he had to be descended from Ali, whom Shias considered the first Imam. After Ali, there was a succession of Imams, and different Shia sects accept different lines of Imams. For example, the Saidis accept only the first 5, the Ismailis accept only these first 7, and the 12 Shias accept, you guessed it, the 12 Imams. The last Imam, Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Mahdi, never had children, but rather went into occultation and will return one day along with Jesus to impose Islam on the earth. Yes, that Jesus. 12 Shias are by far the most prominent Shia sect, and they form the majority of what is now Iran. Now to the Alawites. Back in the 9th century, there was this guy called Ibn Nusayri, follower of the 11th Imam. This dude preached that the Imams were divine in nature, and he viewed himself as a sort of prophet. His message caught on with some locals, and the religion slowly spread across the Syrian coast. Followers of this religion came to be known as Nusayris, and the name Alawite would come much later, in the 20th century, for reasons I'll make clear soon. But for this video, I'll be using the terms Nusayri and Alawite interchangeably. Just know that they refer to the same movement. But now, what do Nusayris actually believe? Well, what makes the topic of Alawite belief so complicated is that this religion is very secretive. They do not disclose their beliefs to outsiders. All the information we have about the Nusayris comes from those who have abandoned the religion and from historians who have observed the community from the outside. Nusayrism is a very syncretic religion, taking elements from Islam, Christianity, Greek philosophy such as Neoplatonism, and even some Gnostic sects. So keep in mind that in my recounting of this religion, I will never be 100% accurate since the official religious leaders don't release any official information to the public. At the beginning of creation, Alawites were lights that surrounded God and praised them. But after a failed uprising, these lights were cast down to earth in physical bodies as punishment and now undergo a constant cycle of reincarnation. Yes, unlike mainstream Muslims, Alawites believe in the transmigration of the soul. The goal of life then is to escape the cycle of death and rebirth and return to Allah as lights. Here in this creation narrative, you can see the clear influence from Gnosticism. Gnostic groups considered the physical world to be inferior, a sort of prison for the soul. But perhaps the most shocking Alawite belief is their main declaration of faith. There is no God but Ali. You remember Ali, the cousin of Muhammad, fourth caliph and the first imam of the Shias? Yes, that Ali is an incarnation of God. God has manifested himself 7 times in history, always doing so in a trinity of sorts. This triad consists of ma'ana, the meaning, al-ism, the name, and al-bab, the door. Al-ma'ana is the main way Allah manifests himself on the earth, and he has manifested himself through these characters: Abel, Seth, Joseph, Joshua, Asaph, Simon Peter, and Ali. Now what's interesting is that the ma'ana manifests itself in what we would consider secondary characters in the biblical and Quranic stories. Abel, Joshua, Peter, all of these are often overshadowed by a more important prophet such as Adam, Moses, and Jesus. But it gets crazier. Once God manifests himself as the ma'ana, he begets, he creates the ism, the name, which we associate with major prophets. The role of the ism is to hide the true manifestation of God in the ma'ana. They serve as veils to the truth, and that's why most of the world fails to recognize when God manifests himself. Along with every name is also al-bab, the door, who functions as like the third person of the Trinity. So under Alawite belief, Ali is the 7th and last manifestation of God, and Ali beget Muhammad, which is funny to think about because Muhammad was way older than Ali. Of course, my explanation of the Alawite Godhead is a gross simplification, but according to our best sources, this seems to be what they have historically believed. And it kind of makes sense in a way, because Shia Islam is a response to the perceived injustice against Ali and his sons, so you can see how early Shiite sects would try to elevate Ali to a divine position, and the most extreme would even elevate him to equality with God. Now here's the thing, you were never supposed to know all of these beliefs. Alawites are a very close community, and they don't share their beliefs with the outside world, and they also don't accept converts. They're like the opposite of Jehovah's Witnesses. Hell, most Alawites are not even aware of what they believe, since their theology is dispensed only to select individuals who rise among the ranks of the clergy. Everyone else who's not in this clerical circle is left in the dark on what the theology actually is. It's similar to how Scientology shares its secret knowledge only to its most dedicated members, who are willing to rise up the levels of the operating heathen. Yes, Alawites are the Scientologists of Islam. Man, that has to be a new sentence. In fact, much of the information we have about the Nusayris comes from Sulaiman al-Adani, a Nusayri elder who converted to Christianity in the 1860s when Syria was under French occupation. He left his religious community and wrote an exposition on his former religion. It was Sulaiman's expose that spiked the curiosity of Western academia into this secretive sect. But the Nusayri community were not happy about this leak, this whistleblower, so they invited Sulaiman to come back to Syria under false pretenses. They captured him and they alive. This is what happens when you spill the secrets of this cult. But thanks to Sulaiman al-Adani's work, we know great details about what happens in the religious rituals of the Nusayris. And one of the most fascinating celebrations in this religion is called Qudas, in which the men get together to consume bread and wine, as they believe Ali manifests himself in the wine. As you can see, clear parallels with Christian communion. Alawites also celebrate other holidays taken from religion of the region, such as Christmas, Persian New Year, and Eid al-Fitr, although these holidays are reinterpreted in an Alawite worldview. Unlike Sunni Muslims, Alawites don't place great importance on fasting and prayer, and it's usually men who participate in most religious ceremonies, not women. They're also not preoccupied in establishing Islamic law known as Sharia. They hold the Quran as one of their holy scriptures, but they interpret it in very different ways. One of the most fascinating accounts of the Nusaidis comes from Arab explorer Ibn Battuta, who explored the coast of Syria in the 14th century. Let me read you what he wrote about these people because it's fascinating. I quote, "Most who live in this coastal region belong to the Nusaidi sect. It is they who believe Ali is God. They don't pray and they don't do the ritual ablutions. They don't even celebrate the month of fasting. Ali Malik al-Sahir forced them to build mosques in the villages, and they build a mosque in every village, but far from their houses, and they neither use nor maintain them. They even keep their sheep and their donkeys there. Sometimes strangers come to their land and stop by a mosque and call to prayer. Then they may call to him and say, 'Stop crying, you shall soon have your fodder.' This sect is large in numbers." As you can see, there have been efforts from the wider Muslim world to assimilate the Nusaidis into mainstream Islam. The Mamluks of Egypt tried to convert the Nusaidis to Sunni Islam by forcing them to build mosques in their villages, but the Nusaidis didn't seem to care all that much about the strict following of Sunni rituals. Why bother praying 5 times a day when you can just hang out with your buddies and drink some wine? There were periods of great oppression as well, especially under the Ottoman Empire, but the fortunes of the Nusaidis would change under French occupation, who, in the classic strategy of colonizers, armed these disadvantaged Nusaidi communities to the teeth in order to raise opposition against the Sunni majority. And this worked to destabilize the region and make it easier for the French to occupy it. In the 1920s, the term Alawite was applied to the community for the first time. This term comes from the name Ali, and it was a way for the Nusaidis to draw closer to Shia Islam. It was like their way of saying, "Look, we are just followers of Ali and not some crazy sect." In 1971, Hafiz al-Assad became president of Syria, and the constitution requires the president to be Muslim. So there has been a conscious effort from the Alawite community to prove that they are indeed Muslims. After Hafiz died, his stupid-ass son took over and ruled Syria for 24 years. Under the Assad family, the Alawites had a very disproportionate presence in the government. Although they only accounted for 10% of Syria's population, they filled up 70% of government positions, which is crazy. Just to give you a modern-day equivalent, imagine Mexican Americans, who compose around 10% of the US population, taking up 70% of government positions. Yeah, that would be quite something, right? Well, something similar was happening in Syria. The Alawites used their political power to oppress the Sunni majority and all other minority sects. But now that Bashar al-Assad fled to the motherland and Daddy Assad's corpse went up in flames, the future of the Alawite community remains uncertain. Al-Julani, head of the rebel army, is a Sunni Muslim, but he has expressed his wish to protect all of Syria's minority sects, so only time will tell. Now onto the million-dollar question. Are Alawites Muslim? Well, it depends on who you ask. It's undeniable that this religion branched off from Shia Islam centuries ago, and it still has a lot of Islamic elements. However, its theology has diverged so much that a lot of Sunni and Shia clerics cast them off as heretics, especially when it comes to their belief in the incarnation of God. You can only imagine how offensive this belief system would be to a regular Muslim. One of the core tenets of Islam is Tawheed, the oneness of God. Allah is completely other from His creation, and He does not share His divine attributes with anyone. So associating God with His creation is the biggest sin you can commit in Islam, known as shirk. So saying that God manifests Himself in a human being is complete sacrilege. But there has been a conscious effort by Alawite communities in the last century to move closer to the mainstream 12 Shia Islam. So if you asked an Alawite if they were Muslims, they would probably say yes. If you are a Muslim, what are your thoughts on the Alawite religion? Let me know in the comments below. No matter if the Alawites can be considered Muslim or not, it still stands that they are a fascinating religion and have been one of the top players in the modern history of Syria, for better or for worse. And my hope is that they, along with all other sects of Syria, can work together to rebuild their country and take it to a brighter future. Hey guys, so thank you for watching this presentation. I have been working on it for weeks and I hope you learned some, because it's so difficult to gain, official information on this religion. But I hope you learned something new from it and I hope you enjoyed it. I would love to keep making more videos on Islam. I'm currently working on a video on Prophet Muhammad, his life. I'm trying to make it as expansive and rich as possible, but it does take a lot of time, so be on the lookout for that. And let me know which topics you would like me to cover next. I would like to expand my video catalog to include other religions such as Hinduism, Buddhism, Shintoism, or other Christian sects such as Catholicism or Seventh-day Adventists, so let me know your video ideas. I want to thank my wonderful Patreons and YouTube channel members for making this channel possible, and I hope to see you on the next one, guys. Take it easy, have a wonderful day, and stay away from the tower.
Brother,